All right, good afternoon. Last time we had this session of going through and adding different reward values. I had issues with streaming stability, so hopefully this stays stable as we go through this. We had put in a basically a window where we would penalize the agent for not moving off of a location. The idea here was that to try and get it out of Professor Oak's lab early. Originally had set it to be, if this was greater than 50, would be when this would apply the penalty. But essentially what ends up happening is you're penalizing it when the agent blacks out and goes backwards. So what would happen is the agent would get to, if it was lucky, get into Vermilion Forest, but then never visit the Pokemon Center and get sent back to the mom's house in Pallet Town. And so then as it moved to try and get back to where it was, it would start getting penalized over and over again. And what ended up happening then is the agent had learned, don't bother to do battles because you're going to get a penalty once the battle ends, especially for trainer battles. So try and avoid those as much as possible, and then run from all random encounters, which would then create a problem when it would get to Brock, because now you're in a long battle window. You may get sent all the way back to essentially the beginning of the game, which then the process to get back to Brock is a huge negative, and so it'll stop and start sitting in the corners again. And then it's not leveled enough to actually get through the Brock encounter. So we had put in the penalty, but done it incorrectly. And then we removed the heal rewards because of what was happening during battle, where essentially it would use Leech Seed to farm the heal reward, especially in the earlier parts of the game. So it would do Leech Seed like 2 to 3 times, and then Growl a bunch of times. And it would significantly reduce the damage that the opponent Pokemon was doing to only be like 1 or 2 damage. And then because it's a percentage-based heal that we are rewarding, it starts to, I think it's like 5, we're giving, 0.05 of a point per percentage point healed. So it would fight a really weak Pokemon. It would essentially overlevel and then go back to Viridian Forest or the area outside of Pallet Town. And it would fight like the Rattata or Pidgeys that were there that are only level 2 or 3. It will hit it for 1, and it has maybe like 30 health. So it loses 3% of its HP, but then every turn it heals. That essentially you get like 0.5 percentage points from that. And then it's more valuable to heal or take advantage of the heal reward over and over again than it is to actually learn proper battling and progression through the game. So both of these led to basically the agent once or twice it had beaten Brock, but for the most part it was sitting in like I said, the area right outside of Pallet Town, not really doing much. It would now move. It wouldn't hang around in the corners, so it started moving through the game as quicker than it had done previously. But then we hit the negative end on the other side. So what I thought to do was implement a window here. So there's going to be a grace period where if this is less than, the grace period is less than or equal to the step count minus the time that it was last seen, and then minus this window, then we're going to apply the penalty. So it needs to be somewhere between 50, and I said 4, you can say 500 here, steps previously. So if you think about it, it's every training batch where you see, if you're watching the live streams, it will pause for a second or two. That's because it's going through and it's doing the training batches to update that. So if we're between that window, then it's going to apply a small negative penalty, in this case of minus 0.01. Now, this is being multiplied by our exploration factor, which is 0.05. So these are very, very small numbers. But the goal here is to get it down, because what we had seen towards the end of runs was that it was getting it was losing between 5 and 10 points in this stuck penalty. And so the way to then avoid that was to stop moving outside of the areas or try and continue exploring the game. Because to do that, it would have to track through areas where it was getting penalized. So capping the one side of this window should help to support that. So before, this was step count minus last seen step is greater than the grace period, then apply it, but it's too large of a window. So now we're changing this to, it needs to be somewhere between 50 and 500 steps that is revisiting the same locations. So this should help to spur it to get out of, at least get out of the initial phase where it spends a lot of time learning how to move through Pallet Town, and then actually go through and progress in the game. So if I come here, this was the penalization. I think the heal, like I said, we removed it due to the leech seed farming. Essentially, I'm just going to set this, but I'm taking off the multiplier here. So reduced scoring due to the leech seed farming. Everything's still going to be doubled because we're doubling all rewards. The level rewards here, the events reward, badges are going to be a huge thing to try and propel it to progressing through the key points of the game. Items here were 0.1. The idea here was that it would learn to pick things up but not throw them away without getting some type of value at them. One of the things that was interesting is that it learned to buy more Pokeballs with the infinite money this way, and then actually convert them into captured or seen Pokemon. So we give it a point for every unique Pokemon seen. This encourages it to go into the battles. And then for the caught Pokemon, this encourages it to use or use those Pokeballs to catch them. But one of the things I did want to go here is see, because I'm pretty sure I had set max and mins here. So it's the minimum of either 10 or the value here for each of the items. So what this does is this is going to go through each of the items here in the list. K is the key, V is the value. So then it looks at the key, gets the value back. If this value is let's say 0 or 1, well, then it's staying the same. No, sorry, if it's not none, it'll be 0. But if it's 1, then it's the same as if you had 5 or 9. And then this works the other way as well. So then this encourages it to essentially load up on the Pokeballs and use them through the game. Same thing for potions, where if you have, if it buys 20 of them, it's the same, and then it should start to use them. We'll have to see more on that behavior if it's actually doing that. This just goes through the Pokedex for how it's catching, or the number of Pokemon caught and then seen. Disable encounters. Level reward. So this will take the maximum of either the previous level reward or the new scaled value. This is to prevent it from learning the negative behavior when it encounters the computer and accidentally puts a Pokemon inside. If it were to do that, it would suddenly lose a lot of points. So this helps to fix that. It may not receive levels again from doing battles, but over time it would even out and then not have such a negative effect from more accidental behavior. Like, you have to think about this, it's doing things randomly. And so you have to think about it like when you have a kid in the house, you need to, or you should put bumpers on all those sharp corners. Otherwise, you may have an accident. And same thing here. what had happened is it accidentally learned that putting Pokemon in the computer meant that the Poke Center was a bad place because you could lose a lot of reward. So then it would start avoiding those and not healing the Pokemon, or not healing its Pokemon, and then eventually blacking out and losing a lot of progress. So the idea here is that it should it should learn the correct behavior instead of getting a massive negative reward here. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that should be handled here. So we have look at this. The opponent's leveling, it never particularly helped for the most part. It would stay the same. Same thing here for, I tried to give it extra reward for going to the Pokemon Center and healing, but it never worked correctly. Just the implementation, I don't think, just worked well as far as that goes. Reward scaling, the opponent's max level didn't particularly matter. These menu rewards, part of the reason why this is here is to teach it. You do something once, but don't do it over again. So this helped it to spend a lot less time randomly clicking through the menu. So you gave it this tiny reward and then you stopped. You took it away. It's to kind of like, oh, you did it right the first time, but no more reward for that. But I don't want to keep it here. It should still show in the totals. So it needs to be in progress reward. That's the game state reward. Okay, so it does have to be in here. I'm just trying to shrink down some of the sizes here because what happens is if you're seeing this essentially as a stream coming through, if your command line goes wider, the line that's printing goes wider than the screen, then it will generate lines for each of those. And I don't want that from a personal perspective. So I'm just trying to clean up some of these so that hopefully when I have this up on the screen, you won't see it basically being a constant roll of the reward functions. Let's see what else. If the last health read HP fractions here, so it's going to look at basically the Pokemon's base health plus the max health, add them all together. And then divide them. So it takes this bit, it then does 256 times whatever that bit is that comes back. This is where I was trying to do the PP reward. So get all the low power but I couldn't get it to work correctly. Do the bit count. Another idea is to in the exploration rewards. So this just goes to scene chords. And the idea here was to try and give it a novelty effect, but how to calculate that is the question. So if chord string is in self, else I guess self dot plus equal max of 0.01 times self step count I want like the max of the last scene step. So this encourages it to revisit places or find new places. So this would help it if it had last gotten stuck. So max self scene chords values. So this means in the early game, as it's progressing through, it's getting the reward for visiting a new coordinate sequentially, as it would before, plus a little bit extra for this novelty reward, but not a large amount. But then if it stalls for a while and then suddenly gets the bonus, that should be fine. So the current step should always be larger than the last scene step because that's going to be put in here, right? So we need to make sure it's just before that. Otherwise, the max step would just be the current step, and you'd essentially get no reward. But if it's here, we're going to give it a reward. Let's say it's been 500 steps since it last updated. Let's keep this even smaller. So 1,000th of every step. But then if it finds one 1,000 steps later, it would get a full point. In the exploration, which is going to be huge when you think about here. Plus novelty. Sorry, self.novelty. Right, so go up here. Novelty reward, we just need to initiate it at the beginning. So we see the stuck. Ooh, I wanted to search. Same place that we put the stuck penalty initiation is where we need to put that in as well. And we're just starting at a 0. So like I said, in the early game, it will accrue exploration points faster now. And then as it continues on longer, this will help encourage it to acquire new steps that it had not gone to previously, which I think is fine. One of the things about the stuck penalty is when the agent dies, if it dies frequently, it will essentially get penalized trying to backtrack to where it was. I think 500 is okay for that window. The only place I can think of that this would cause issues is if it actually learns to, if it learns for Brock to actually use Vine Whip instead of trying to tackle the ground Pokemon there over and over again, that it could get better rewards that way. So that's all of the big changes that I want to make. What I'm going to do is bring the stream down and let this run in the background to do relearning here, essentially, because we've made a number of changes. Okay, I already made this so that way we're starting from scratch. Go through and try and get this to a state where we can get those. So a few changes here. We added a novelty reward for not finding a new square in a while. Then we made revisions to the penalty as far as what's being stuck. We are bringing the healing rewards back in, but we are reducing the scoring. This is hopefully to prevent it from farming with leech seed. And then we made adjustments to that stuck penalty. So a number of changes here today. We'll let this run for probably about 24. Usually I'm not live on Wednesday. We'll let this run for like 24 hours and see what the results are as far as scoring. And then what I'll do is I'll let that run. Wednesday evening, I will bring the stream online to have the agents go through and show progress there. And then on Thursday, we'll have another stream where we can come back and see what the effects are happening here and see if we need to do more or if we can proceed to let it train a bit more. So that's all for today. I know it was a relatively short stream by comparison to some of these others, but I think it's quick and effective to get in here, just talk a bit about what we're having happening. We're at this experimentation phase where we need to make changes and then unfortunately wait for the agents to run for a while, and then we can come back to hopefully seeing more of the progress here. So that's all for today, and we're going to let it do the training, and then I will bring it online tomorrow, probably later in the afternoon, just to see how well it's going overall. So that's all for today. Thank you, everybody, and hopefully this goes well, and be sure to check out the stream once it's going to see how the agents are doing.